Today I'm here in Los Angeles with Grammy Award-winning producer Matt Hyde, who, as I'm sure a lot of you watching this will know, that Matt's produced everything from the likes of Slayer, Hatebreed, Children of Bodom, recently mixed the new Behemoth album, The Satanist, produced the phenomenal Parkway Drive album Atlas, and also the Slayer album God Hates Us All. But not only just the modern metal style all the way through to bands like No Doubt and Cypress Hill. So we're going to be talking about contemporary metal production in general, but we're also going to be speaking more specifically about the production on Atlas and on God Hates Us All. What, with the bands that you get a chance to work on pre-production with, what is your approach with click tracks, and what are your views on click tracks, particularly for the drums?
Oh, well, most of these new bands, you're always using click tracks and tempo maps. This is, again, we talk about, we're confining this to modern metal music, and one of the things that changes is like, look, man, when I did God Hates Us All, there were some count-offs, but there's no tempo maps or click tracks on those records. It's just all, and you can hear it. I mean, there's incredible tempo ramps, places where the drums speed up and slow down, and that's what the music needs. I remember just to try it one time when we were in the studio, I threw a click up and said, let's just try to do this at like an even tempo. Just absolutely killed it. Really? So for that type, version and that style, no, that I can't do it. Today's music though, even if there are all those ramps, it's all written in, and everything is precisely mapped out. And in pre-production, I go through, things happen in different phases, and there are different styles of pre-production, and it has to do with the bands, and it usually has to do with what era they came in. I might be making a modern metal record, but if I'm making that modern metal record with a band that's been around for a couple decades, they're going to expect to go into a rehearsal space and play their shit, and that's the way they're going to write, and we'll record it, and then I'll analyze that recording, and I'll generate a tempo map, and we'll figure it out that way. Sure. A lot of the new bands compose their shit primarily, and I'm swearing all over the place. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
They compose primarily in the computer.
Yeah. And
primarily via MIDI. So a lot of those tempo maps are manipulated in that process, and I start in the computer, and the scratch tracks and the tempo maps and everything that I'm going to need for my recording template are generated straight out of pre-production, out of the fact that it's composed in a lot of times all the kick patterns, and frankly, a lot of the stuff, like you hear certain records, and I can tell you for a fact that the kick is MIDI and the guy's playing only hands over the kick.
Yeah, I've done that before.
Because, and you get it specialized, really ridiculously fake, but really extreme, and sometimes it's the right thing to do.
Hyper reality.
Yeah, it's hyper reality, exactly.
Yeah. Guitar equipment wise and bass equipment wise, are there any sort of approaches that you feel are most relevant, sort of like firstly with down-tuned guitar tonalities? You
have to stay true and specific to the artist. Sometimes guys come in and they have a trademark sound. Sometimes it's your job to create their sound for them. Yeah. I've got a lot of different amps. I've got a huge variety of, I got all of them, and all the other guys do too. And it's all about figuring out what the combinations are, and you learn what the good primary sound's going to be and what the good secondary sound's going to be sometimes, and how you want them to be there. So that's in terms of amps. In terms of guitars, you find rhythm guitar, there's pickup type depending on what the tuning is. A lot of times you go with your active EMGs, but there's certain kinds of bands where I might not want that because I want a more open sound or something like that. So I'm looking at things, all the choices have to do, it all comes back to the same thing, which is your vision of what the thing's supposed to be like at the end. You have to see the finish line, and you make your choices at the beginning to reach that finish line the way you want. So there's some critical choices about guitar, tuning, what style pickup, what kind of strings. You get into, when we talk about down-tuned stuff and we talk about the precision of metal, like one of the things that keeps it precise, one of the most critical things in all records, and everybody knows this, is tuning. Yeah. But tuning on a metal record is even more important, and it's got its own problems, because when you down-tune instruments that were never intended to be down-tuned, you don't have the proper amount of string tension, so you got to look at strings. There's certain tricks. Yeah. Cores of strings need to be thicker. Sometimes we use an Ernie Ball 55 bass G string for the E string tuned down to C or something, because it's actually a thinner gauge string. It's only 55, 56, 57 some people use, but the core is thicker, which creates higher string tension. And the string tension is what you want. It's not the thickness of the string as much as it's part of it. But the string tension is what's going to keep it in tune. So if there's more mass in the core, you're going to have less of the the guy hits it.
As we were talking about before, the baritone guitars that we were talking about before.
Then there's all these things about scale length that are critical, and then you get into all the people with their different kinds of bridge, all these modified tuning systems, bridges, and all this stuff, and messing around with a lot of that stuff too. And some of them are great. Some people swear by certain things. I'm still kind of myself pretty much a purist. I just kind of use regular guitars and figure out how to get them in tune. And but there's different things. A lot of it has to do with guys playing too. Some guys overcome it with their playing. Yeah. Some guys don't overcome it with their playing. Some guys have really fucked up technique, and then you get into that whole part of it, where the human part of it, where Parkway was a really interesting example, where one guy would do a certain thing good and another guy would do another thing really well. They specialize in certain types of things. Yeah. So one of the great things about that band, and one of the great things in recordings, when you have guys that don't have the ego, like, I got to play all my parts, you got to play all your parts. What they would do is they would play the parts that they played well.
Sure.
And we'd mix it all up, and sometimes the guitar would be getting passed back and forth as we went through a part, because there were just certain things techniques that one guy did better for recording, and certain techniques that the other guy did better to get a really in tune, really consistent part.